Hey guys, XanixSDC here. Today I'm going to show you how to set up the Android SDK. There are several steps involved in installing the Android SDK, and it can get quite complicated. So I'm going to walk you through it as easily as I can. The first thing you're going to want to do is download the JDK, or Java Development Kit. Since Android applications are written in Java, you're going to need the basic Java framework from Oracle in order to write your apps. So let's go to the Oracle website and download the JDK. I will provide this link for you in the margin of the video, so just click on that. So the first thing we do is we accept the license agreement. Then we select the version of Java that we want for depending on the operating system. I'm running a 64-bit Windows operating system, so I'm going to download that version. But based on your computer, whether your computer's 32-bit or 64-bit, you'll download the appropriate version. 32-bit computers would download this times x86, the times 86 version, and 64-bit computers would download the times 64. So click on this link, and then the download should start. You should end up with this file right here, this JDK-6U9 6U19-Windows whatever, etc. It's kind of large at about 80 megabytes, so it might take a little while. So just wait for that patiently. The next thing you're going to want to download is Eclipse. Eclipse is the IDE used for Android programming. It is the equivalent of Xcode for iPhone application development. This is the actual program where you will write your applications. The version of Eclipse that's recommended is Eclipse Classic, this one right here. Again, depending on whether you're running a 32-bit or 64-bit system, click on the appropriate link. Since I'm running a 64-bit system, I'll click on that, and then you can download it from here by clicking this arrow. You should end up with this zip file right here. Which, this again is kind of a large download, it's 200 megabytes, that might take a while. The last thing you're going to want to download is the actual Android SDK. To download the Android SDK, come to this link which I'll provide for you, and click on Android SDK R13 Windows.zip, or whatever version.zip. Even though it says the installer is recommended, I actually recommend the zip file because it's a lot more customizable and you can choose where you want to install the directory. It's just a lot easier to organize. So click on this and the download should start. So in the end, you should have these 3 downloads ready for your for setup. The next step in the process of installing the Android SDK is to actually install the JDK. Now that you have all your downloads finished, we can just run through the process very smoothly. To install the JDK, double-click on your JDK application that you downloaded, and then it should walk you through the process. Since I already have it installed on my computer, I'm not going to go through that. But it should the JDK installation wizard should just walk you through the process and install the JDK. The next thing you're going to want, once you have the JDK installed, the next thing you're going to want to do is install Eclipse. Eclipse is this program right here, and to install it, there are several steps involved. Unlike regular programs, Eclipse doesn't actually install using a wizard. You just copy and paste the WinZip archive into a folder. First thing we're going to do is open My Documents and create a new folder called Android Setup. So right-click, New, and Folder. Okay? Create a new folder called Android Setup. Once you have that created, go inside that and create another folder called Workspace. Again, using New and then Folder. Right now, these folders should be empty, so don't worry about that. Just make sure you have these created. We're going to be using this to install all the directories for everything. So now that you have your Android Setup folder and you have your Eclipse zip file, go to your Eclipse zip file and right-click on it and click Open with Windows Explorer. Another window should pop up and you'll see this folder called Eclipse. copy and paste this file into your Android setup. So go back to your Android setup and copy and paste it inside. Okay? Paste it. You should end up with something like this. Again, I made stages for this tutorial. So you should end up with something like this, where you have Workspace and Eclipse, two folders. Workspace should be empty, however, Eclipse will have several things inside of it. What you've done is you've basically just installed Eclipse already. To finish Eclipse, now what you've done is you've installed Eclipse, right? So to open Eclipse, you left-click, double-click Eclipse, and then see this Eclipse application? Double-click on this, and Eclipse should start up. Click Run because you trust Eclipse, and then this should pop up. Now this is where the workspace we created comes in handy. As you can see, it says select a workspace. Now we have to browse for the directory where we saved that workspace. Since we made it in the Android setup file, which is in My Documents, that's where we're going to go. So click on Browse, look for My Documents, which in my case is in Libraries, Documents, My Documents, and then inside My Documents should be the Android setup folder. Click on the Android setup folder, and inside should be Workspace. Click on Workspace once. Since for the purposes of this tutorial, I divided up the Android setup folder into several stages. But in your case, it should just be Android setup. Don't worry about the stages. So click on Android setup and click once on Workspace. Android setup and Workspace. And now Workspace should come in this folder and click OK. You have just specified the path for your workspace. The workspace is really important because that is where Eclipse stores all your application projects. Now that we've specified the workspace, click OK to start Eclipse. It'll start to load and should be done pretty fast. And then this window should pop up. This is the actual Eclipse program. This is where you're going to write your Android applications. Now, since Eclipse is an IDE for multiple types of programming, not just Android application development, it doesn't have the Android framework built into it. We have to actually explicitly install that Android framework into the Eclipse. In order to do that, you have to do install something called the ADT plugin, which is provided by Google, and I'll show you how to do that. So first of all, click on Help. Click on Install New Software, and then this window should pop up. Where it says Work With, enter this URL. I'll provide this URL for you in the margin of the video. As you can see, something called Developer Tools should pop up over here. Checkmark this, and click Next. This will walk you through it will walk you through the installation of the developer tools. This might take a little while, so just be ready for that because they have to download some more stuff. So as you can see, before we integrate Eclipse with the Android ADT plugin, when you click on New, there's nothing Android related over here, right? However, after we install the plugin, this is what it should look like. When you click on New, you'll see this Android project right here. So basically, they've integrated Android with Eclipse, the Android framework. The next thing we're going to have to do is actually install the Android SDK. We've integrated the Android ADT plugin with Eclipse, but now we have to specify the Android libraries. So in order to do that, we have to go to the downloads. Remember we had downloaded the Android SDK? It came as this Android SDK Windows zip file. Go back to that and right click on it and click Open with Windows Explorer. This window should pop up with this Android SDK Windows folder inside it. Right click on that and click Copy. Now go to My Documents again and go to your Android setup folder and open it up and paste it inside. So yours will look like this once you've pasted it inside. So right click and paste. You should have 3 folders in here: Eclipse, Workspace, and Android SDK Windows. Again, do not mind the stages. This is just for the tutorial. You should just have an Android setup folder with these 3 things inside of it. Once you've once you've pasted the Android SDK Windows inside the setup folder, go back to Eclipse and click Window and Android SDK and AVD Manager. Sorry, my wrong one. Click Preferences. This window should pop up, and click Android, this Android tab on the left, and select where you want to select the Android SDK Windows. Click on Browse and navigate to your Android SDK Android setup folder in My Documents. In my case, again, it's in Libraries, Documents, My Documents, and then Android Setup. Inside Android Setup should be the Android SDK, this folder. Click on it once in a similar way we did for Workspace and click OK. Now click Apply to save the settings and click OK. Now you've integrated the Android SDK with Eclipse itself. The next step involves installing the Android platform API versions. In order to do this, you have to go to Window and click Android SDK and AVD Manager. And this time I think I'm right. So go to Available Packages on this window that will pop up. Right here on the left there should be something called Available Packages. And click Android Repository. So click the checkbox next to Android Repository. All of these should pop up. As you can see, it shows you the SDK platform numbers, version numbers that you're going to install. Like in this case, it has SDK platform Android 3.2, 3.1, 3.0, etc. These are all the different versions of Android, the new SDK, the new features of each SDK, of each Android version that are going to be installed for Eclipse. So click Install Selected right here, and it should guide you throughout the entire process of installing it. Once you're done with this, the last and the final step of this whole process is to create an AVD, or Android Virtual Device. An AVD is a virtual phone that will run on your computer. It'll run a version of Android, depending on which one you specify, and you'll be able to test your Android applications on the computer without having a hardware phone. This can be done by going to Window and selecting Android SDK and AVD Manager once again, and make sure you're on the Virtual Devices tab over here. Click New. Give your AVD a name. Let's call ours Android 2.3. Okay? Since we've named our thing 2.3, let's choose the Android 2.3 API level 10. This is the version of Android that your virtual device will run on your computer. This AVD is essentially just an emulator. It emulates an Android phone. Over here it says SD card. So let's give the SD card some space. Depending on how much free space you have in your hard drive, give that much. I'll give 100 megabytes. And then click Create AVD. Create AVD. Yay, a new AVD was created. Android 2.3. This is the API level, which is just the level of the Android API, obviously, which is basically the platform level. And the platform version number is 2.3.3. Okay, so you have basically completed the entire setup of the Android SDK. Congratulations! Good luck with your Android application programming. Please subscribe to my channel, XanaxSTC, if you like this tutorial. Thank you!